All right, guys, today we work on the Farmall 560. All right, so the sprayer's filling up. It's a very slow process. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting for the sprayer to fill up, I have removed all the sheet metal from the 560, just about. I have it all off. And there's a couple operations that are going to happen all at once here. If you've been following along, you know. Got a new upper radiator hose, got a new lower radiator hose. Both of them are in pretty rough shape. The upper one isn't so bad, but the bottom one had all that oil and junk from the top valve cover and the side valve cover leaking, that it was coated, and it's in pretty bad shape. It's very brittle. The other thing is there's a tiny short radiator hose in front of the generator, and that one is leaking. It's dripping antifreeze as it's sitting here. So we got to do something. I was online looking at some parts, and I couldn't find that short little piece. So we're going to take a piece out of this one and splice it in, get a good piece in there. The antifreeze is draining. So if you need to know how to drain the antifreeze out of your 560 or most international tractors, it's the same process. There's a little valve in there with wings on it. You get yourself about a 3/8 hose and a clean bucket and attach your 3/8 hose to the spout and open it. This one had mud wasp nests in it, so I had to take a drywall screw and work it around, but we got it flowing now. So the antifreeze is draining, and the other reason I need to drain the antifreeze is I'm replacing the temperature gauge here, the sending unit for the temperature gauge. It does not work on this tractor, and I think there's a cut in this. I think it's broke. It's not one piece anymore. It's not connected. So we're gonna put a new temperature gauge in, and also I am removing the old fuel sending unit out of here. If you watched my video parts orders here, something to that effect, you'll know you can get a fuel sending unit and a fuel gauge as a package deal. So we're going to pull this old sending unit out of here and put a new one in so our fuel gauge works, and we'll have a gauge. So 3 radiator hoses to replace, fuel sending unit, fuel gauge. Let me come around to this side. We've got an oil pressure gauge to put in. We've got a charging gauge to put in. We've got a, what else? I said about the fuel gauge. So we're gonna remove this dash completely and take all the gauges out of it, and we're gonna paint it because it never got painted. It's a little rusty looking, and let it dry, put the new decals on, put the dash back in, and put our gauges in. I'm hoping this is gonna be, let's see, it's about noon right now. I'm hoping by 3-4 o'clock we'll have it pretty well finished. It shouldn't take too long. It's not a hard tractor to work on. So antifreeze is draining, and I'm starting with the fuel sending unit while I'm waiting for that to drain. So I'll show you the install on the fuel sending unit. All right, up here at this fuel sending unit here, take the 5 little studs out. You'll need a 5/16 wrench. There's 5 little studs. Those are removed. You'll notice on this it has silicone to seal it. The new one comes with a gasket, so we're just gonna tear off the excess of this silicone. It's probably gonna be stuck fast. Get yourself a screwdriver to pry it up. And before we do too much damage to it, I want to set it next to the new one and compare, because there's always a chance. As a matter of fact, there's usually a 100% chance you could have the wrong parts, the way this has been going this year and last year. Just get some of that dirt out of the way, get this excess silicone out of here. So I'm hoping by the time I get done with this, and I don't know if I'll get it done today, that's pretty ambitious because I do want to go spray about 15 more acres. So let's see. Nope, that was easy. Not stuck fast at all. So we lift up on it here. A piece fell in. Well, that's what your filter's for. This silicone is pretty rough stuff. And you just have to work it out. You see now I got to turn it this way and pull it out. And there it is. So let's look at this. A lot of times what happens with these is the float fails and it fills up with fuel. And that might be the case with this. So before I get diesel all over my hands, I want to put some gloves on and investigate this and compare it to the new one. Okay, so we've got them both on the bench here, old, new. The new one does have a plastic float versus this old, it's probably like a brass or another material, but this doesn't have fuel in it. So the float wasn't the issue. So I'm looking at this sending unit and seeing what failed. And those of you guys that have a good eye here and can probably tell me why it failed. Now, the way these things work, you take notice this rod here goes up and down, and it's supposed to pass over this little bar here that has it gives a signal, an electrical signal that will tell the gauge where the fuel level is as the float goes up and down. And you'll take notice this little tab here has unhooked itself from the rod. So as it goes down, and then, all right, we're all the way, right now we're all the way full. And as it goes down, you'll see the rod moving without moving that tab. So that tab is disconnected and is not giving it a signal, and is always going to show that the tank is empty, which is what happens with the gauge. And the gauge didn't move or bounce or anything, and that pretty well is going to hold out, because this rod can move all at once, and it's not going to move that little electrical, or that little tab to give it an electrical signal. So we've got the new one here. It's a lot more robust. It's not as tinny, as small as the other one. There's a lot more to it the way it looks, a lot more plastic. We've got a washer there, rubber washer. It does look like a bigger diameter top, but the holes are in further. On this one, the holes are right at the edge, so I believe it will work. I didn't put it in yet. So this should be all right. Now, if anybody's interested in this kit, like I say, this covers from the 460, 560, all the way up to the 1066, any of those type of fuel tanks. It was from All States Ag Parts, of course, and there's the number. And I don't remember the price, but piecing them together was cheaper than buying them separate. So we got a new gauge and a new sending unit, so everything will be new, and if it doesn't work, then it might just be a wiring issue from there. So let's get it installed in the tractor. First, I got to clean off the old silicone. Okay, so you're going to want to put it in with the gasket underneath, of course. It's part of the sending unit. You put it in, and I was rotating it around a little bit here. It only goes in one way. You can't almost put it in wrong because the bolt spacing is a little bit different. So it's in now pretty good, and I'm pretty sure that's going to work. We're going to change this wire end from the they have the stick-on connector. I'm going to use this stud here and use this because it's a solid connection. And so we've got the new sending unit in, and the antifreeze is out of it now, so we can keep going forward. All right, now that the antifreeze is out of it, we've got our fuel sending unit in. We're going to remove this old temperature sending unit and get that out of our way here. All right, guys, we're back at the 560. We're getting it all apart here. You'll see I took the generator off because we have this is the little hose that was leaking that I was telling you about. I have the top radiator hose replaced already. That's pretty well common sense. I have the bottom one unhooked. I took the 3 bolts out of this little housing here to access this little hose. Like I say, I wasn't able to find that little hose online, but it's all right. It's a common size, and I want to try to use a piece from this hose here. So let's get into it. All right, so we got that elbow off. All it is those 3 studs, and it's basically just an elbow from the water pump. And you'll see I did put some paint on, and you can take notice probably where I didn't paint. So well, everything's off. I'm gonna work at cleaning everything up and get my belts out of the way and try to get some paint in the areas that I couldn't get with the generator on. And I haven't decided yet. There's a generator sitting somewhere. There it is. I'm gonna clean it up a little bit, and I may paint it black because I think these were black originally. I don't know for sure, but it'll look nicer. It's a 2-tone. Well, it's off. We can clean it up and get some paint on it. So that short hose, I'm just going to measure a piece off and cut a piece and get it on and get it clamped. And then, like I say, it's just these 3 studs. We'll clean up the studs, put some anti-seize on, and put it back together. So let's keep at it. All right, so the next thing you're going to want to do is remove your dash. I'm getting all these wires and connections unhooked here to get all the gauges out of this dash. So it's a mess. One advantage of having this off, what I'm going to do, at this point I don't see any reason to rewire this tractor. A lot of these wires do look pretty good yet. Somebody must have taken the time to rewire this at some point from the 60s till today. What I do want to do is go through all the wires, make sure there's no breaks or exposed wires, and I want to clean them up. and get them zip tied together and get some plastic loom on them, because they're just everywhere. There's no rhyme or reason to any of these wires in this dash. So I just about have it all off here. So a little bit time consuming, but I probably only have about a half hour into it so far. So let's keep digging. All right, guys, that's where I'm going to leave you for the day. We have a dash from a Farmall 560 with a non-functioning fuel gauge, non-working charging gauge, non-working temperature gauge, fuse holder all corroded, start buttons corroded, oil pressure gauge doesn't work all the time. The hour meter does appear to work. I did put a tack cable on, I will say that. So we're gonna get this, get all these gauges out of here. We're gonna sand this down real nice, tape it off. We're gonna paint it black, and once everything's painted, maybe touch up the outside part, the red, put the new gauges in, and reinstall it in the tractor. And I'm out of time for today, so that's where I will leave you guys. Show you kind of what it looks like without the dash on here, and it's a mess. So it's an absolute mess, and it's going to drive me nuts. So we're going to dig into that maybe tomorrow and try to make sense of these wires, get them zip tied better, wrapped up a lot nicer, check out the condition of the wires. The paint's still drying on this side with the radiator hose, so I'm not going to be putting that on today yet. Just let it dry. So I'll pick up with this tomorrow. So thanks for watching, guys.